Hey, everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia, back with the latest installment of the Jungle Roar podcast on the CLNS Media Network, empowered by our good friends at Prize Picks. Back with us on this edition of the Jungle Roar pod, the one and only Richard Skinner. We know him better as Skinny on Local 12 and local12.com. Skinny, some interesting news I want to get to, wrapping up the owners meetings in Phoenix last week, and our good friend Kelsey Conway had the opportunity to chat with a Bengal, I think, Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever play the position. That would be a left tackle. That would be Andrew Whitworth. Of course, when you say left tackle in Cincinnati Bengals history, you think of Anthony Munoz, and I think right there, maybe a little bit after him, a little bit down the ladder of success in at that position is Andrew Whitworth. And Andrew Whitworth had some interesting comments as to where the Bengals are now. He still, as Kelsey points out in the article, still holds the franchise in very high regard. Good friends still with Joe Burrow and head coach Zach Taylor. But, and you knew there was a but coming when it was Andrew Whitworth and the Bengals. He was asked, what is holding the Bengals back? And I'm going to quote here. I think for them, health has been a factor. Obviously, you can't change a lot of that. There's also been things where you say defensively, it's been a struggle. I think you've kind of addressed that through the coordinator. And I think the biggest problem has probably been not being able to bring in the kind of guys that draft well. He's not talking about players there, Skinny. He's talking about people that actually do the drafting. A franchise like Cincinnati, let's be real with each other, they're not going to live in a trade world. They're not going to overpay guys. So guess what? You're going to have to draft well. And when you don't, the whole entire team suffers, and it's been a problem. Kelsey asks a very natural follow-up. Can you elaborate? Whitworth, you want to make moves that are significant. Everyone in the building is like, it's go time. To me, that's what I'm looking for. My point is that now here you are in another window where you've got some young talent on the team. Don't let it go by. Don't shoot your shot. Shooting your shot is not paying guys that have been there, that have proven that they have earned the money. Shooting a shot is like, this is something that seems a little risky, and we're putting ourselves out there, but it's what we think gets us over the hump. Your thoughts on all of that from Andrew Whitworth?
Well, some of it I think he's talking about himself, right? When he was, when they let him walk in free agency and didn't pay him because they weighed the risk of paying a 30-something-year-old offensive lineman not worth the price. They were completely wrong because Andrew Whitworth went on to finish his career in pretty high regard with the Rams and won a Super Bowl ring, for goodness sakes. I think he's talking a little bit about himself, but there is his personal knowledge of how that all transpired and how they maybe weren't willing to take the risk and that they aren't willing to take risk. I think we see that with how they structure contracts. They don't like to do guaranteed money beyond year one. They had to with the Joe Burrow deal. They had to with the Jamar Chase deal, but they don't like to do that. And so I think that it's well said on his point. I don't think anybody would disagree with any of that stuff that, you get one more chance, in my opinion, to get this right in the draft, and then you have to go a different direction. That's probably not what's going to happen, but you just can't. And listen, I think everybody thinks these things are like complete opposite ends, like they do everything they do is bad. No, not everything they do is bad. They've hit on some things, but you got to hit on more. You just have to hit on more.
You have to be more aggressive. Here's the problem. Not everything they do is bad. They've done a lot of successful things in terms of some of the coaches that they've brought in, some of the talent that they have developed, and obviously some of the big name players that they have drafted and retained. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. We've been over that, I think, ad nauseum. We give them full marks for that. Where Whitworth, I think, hones in on a very pertinent point is that the biggest problem has probably been not being able to bring in the kind of guys that draft well. What he's talking about is a bigger, better scouting department.
Yes.
And having more voices in the room, and then having that one person, Duke Tobin, in this particular case, make that call on draft night. And there is the sense inside not so much inside the building, obviously, but outside the building, and perhaps some of the players that would be in the building who don't have full confidence in the way they're building their roster.
I mean, Mike, in the last 10 years, they've made the playoffs twice, and been kind of the Duke Tobin has been in charge of some of that stuff for those 10 years. I mean, how many organizations would allow that? I mean, honestly, how many would allow that? Especially when you're in a window of a franchise quarterback. You just can't keep getting swings at this and keep missing. Have injuries affected? Sure. The Joe Burrow injury affected. But did we not think Joe Flacco played really well when he came in last year and played the 6 games? He sure did. And yet they went 1-5. Why'd they go 1-5? Because they didn't have good players on defense. And so, again, how many chances do you get to take a swing at this? And I got to tell you, I mean, this is it. This is your last swing at it, and you better get it right, or else it's time to find somebody else to do this.
Well, I mean, you say that, Skinny, and respectfully, what if they say we're just going to continue doing business the way we do business?
They are.
Well, then the problem is, okay, that on the outside, the Bengal fan doesn't feel like the ownership feels any urgency whatsoever. Even if Joe Burrow does win or doesn't win, or if he walks next year out of the building and they move on from Joe Burrow, as unfathomable as that seems right now, the world could end, Skinny, for the Bengals, and they don't care. They're going to continue to do business the way they do business. And I think that is something that Andrew Whitworth is keenly aware of. And that was pretty much, to me, the essence of his point to Kelsey.
Yeah, no, I agree with that part of it. But I've seen this fan base eventually say enough is enough and stop going and stop spending money, and crowds become just awful to the point where then they figure out, we got to do something to get them back. And it felt like this time around, once they got them back, that they would strive to do better, to do more, to do things in a more modern way, and yet they haven't done that. And that's why it's so frustrating to sit here 3 straight years without making the playoffs after making the championship game in the Super Bowl with, again, a franchise caliber quarterback. Yes, I know he's been hurt. He wasn't hurt in 2024. He played the entire 17-game season, and they still went 9-8, and that just can't happen.
No, it cannot. And I think the charge this offseason, everybody knows, has been to fix the defense. And, I want to move on now from what Andrew Whitworth said about the current administration to what the current administration is doing about fixing the defense. And we said we give them full marks when it's due. I think something they should be praised for is the way they've gone about, at least on paper, rebuilding the defense so far. And I like certainly you can't argue with signing a free agent in Bryan Cook. I think that was a no-brainer, right? I mean, we all agree on that. But going out and getting Kyle Duggar and bringing him in to challenge for a spot at Jordan Battle's position, I think was very, very smart.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the back end of his career. I mean, if you look at his
PFF
30,
grade, 31, yeah.
And if you look at his PFF grade last year, he was one of the lowest rated safeties in the NFL. But that being said, for him to be your third safety depth piece, I'm all for it. I mean, he's a veteran who's been there, done that, who's been on winning teams, who has been a starting caliber player in this league for a good chunk of time. And so I'm fine with stuff like that. I think it is a good signing, Mike, even though I just slung darts at him for how he played last year. I mean, the facts are the facts. But for him to be a backup piece that you can at least trust when they didn't trust Tyson Anderson whatsoever to play safety, when they didn't trust P.J. Jules whatsoever or Dejon Anthony whatsoever, despite Geno Stone being a disaster. Geno Stone kept playing because they didn't trust those guys behind them. At least now you've got a guy that been there, done that. Is he probably a step slower than he's been? Yeah. Is he the same player he was 5 years ago, 3 years ago? Of course not. But as a depth piece, great signing. It's not hit the books yet on over the cap, Mike. I haven't seen the contract details, but I'm sure it's a reasonable price to have that depth piece. And then you either get one in the draft in one of the first couple of rounds, if it's not Caleb Downs, maybe in rounds 2 or 3, and then suddenly your safety room is set. And I think that was a very good signing. I give them full marks for that one too. I'm with you.
Let's break that down. Kyle Duggar is somebody who is not going to play deep. He's not particularly strong in coverage. I think we know that. Get that out of the way.
And unless he's stepping in front of a Joe Flacco pass and going the distance.
Yes. That aside, one thing he does do, he covers tight ends very, very well. And he plays the run very, very well. He's a run force type of safety. And I think that is something that we could even see a scenario where maybe Bryan Cook is on the field at the same time as Jordan Battle. I'm sorry, Kyle Duggar could be on the field at the same time as Bryan Cook and Jordan Battle, big nickel, some type of situation like that. Just break down, if you will, Skinny, some of the X's and O's that went into bringing a guy like Kyle Duggar in and how he supports the rest of the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of this, too, is, listen, in a perfect world, Bryan Cook and Jordan Battle start 17 games each and play the overwhelming majority of the snaps because they're both playing well. But it's not a perfect world. The NFL is not a perfect world. You literally, as bad as Geno Stone was last year, Mike, again, they didn't trust those backups whatsoever. What would have happened if those guys had gotten hurt, right? I mean, now at least you have a guy you can trust. And to your point of the big, we saw Seattle run a bunch of the big nickel with 3 safeties on the field,
yep.
And it was very effective for them. I do know they liked the DJ Ivey role last year where he kind of played that big nickel role of covering tight ends. But again, you just can't have one of each. Like, you can't say, okay, I got this guy, I'm good. No, you need somebody that can back these guys up in case something happens. And I think that's the important part too. The more depth you can have, the more variety you can have, the more versatility you can have, the better. And I think this move allows them to do that. And it allows you then to go into the draft and not force something. And I don't think you do. I don't think you have to force anything at the moment. And listen, we can all continue to kick and fuss about the linebackers. I get it. I'm going to kick and fuss until I'm blue in the face. But for the most part, you've addressed edge, you've addressed tackle, you've addressed safety in both a starter, a definitive starter, and a really veteran depth piece in Duggar. We'll get to Jasir Taylor here in a second. And I certainly think they are better on paper defensively by far than they were last year, and that's all you're asking at the moment.
He is Richard Skinner. We know him better as Skinny from Local 12 and Local12.com. The playoff push is heating up and tournament hoops are winding down. And there's no better way to cash in if you're right on the high-flying hoops action than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports pick app. Every bucket, every assist, and every rebound means more when you're playing on Prize Picks. And with their brand new Team Picks markets, you can now pick game winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks you already know. So cash in if you're right during all of the clutch buckets, slam dunks, and Cinderellas this spring with Team Picks on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Pick app today and pick your first game winner, spread, or total as the playoff push rolls on, and get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Use that code CLNS. That's code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Prize Picks Predict is a registered FCM offering Team Picks and Culture Picks as event contracts. Trading involves significant risk, not for all. The content provided is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, a recommendation to trade any commodity interest, or an offer to open an account. CLNS Media is not registered with the CFTC or NFA. Prize Picks Predict does not endorse or guarantee any statements made by third-party promoters or influencers. Please consult with a qualified professional before making any trading decisions. Back with Richard Skinner, Skinny of Local 12 and Local12.com, finishing up the secondary talk before we get on to the linebackers and other Bengal items of the day. Jasir Taylor, what did you make of his signing? Again, he is somebody that might or might not make the roster, but I think in an age where you're still looking for that next Mike Hilton, that next reliable nickelback, slot corner, he's certainly going to be in the competition with Jalen Davis.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't. really play much last year for the Jets. You go back a couple years ago, he did play a good chunk for the Chargers. I think he started 6 or 8 games. They used him in a variety of ways. I mean, he blitzed some out of the slot. Actually was pretty effective that season. And so, to your point, I mean, let's not forget, as much as we all love Mike Hilton, right? I mean, Mike Hilton was a practice squad player at one point for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Finally got his chance, played well enough to have another team want his services, and that was the Bengals. Jalen Davis has bounced around all over this league. Has really never gotten his chance. In fact, had never started a game despite being around the league for numerous years until last year with the Bengals, and then played pretty well. And maybe the change of scenery for Jasir Taylor will be helpful for him. I think it, like you said, I don't even know if he makes this team, to be honest with you. I mean, if it turns out the Bengals draft a corner and feel good enough about Josh Newton, DJ Ivey, the draftee, and some other corners, that he might just be a practice squad player when all is said and done. But it does give you a guy who's, as I mentioned, a couple years ago with the Chargers, played pretty well. Not great, but pretty well. Maybe scheme, change of scenery. These slot corners sometimes do come out of nowhere. And so I think it's worth kicking the tires on. It's not going to cost you much. His money's not hit the books yet either on over the cap or spot rack. But I can't imagine it's very much at all. And again, I like the fact you need to bring in some competition. And what you've done now is at least now when you go into the draft, it's not, boy, we sure need a starting slot corner. I mean, Jalen's better in a backup role. No, you're now at least
right.
You take whatever's in a pod of players, your best guy on the board. Is it the best guy's an edge? It's an edge. If it's a linebacker, it's a linebacker. If it's a safety, it's a safety. If it's a corner, it's a corner. You don't have to force anything at the moment. And so I think those 2 signings last week, while they're under the radar, sure, you can, again, look at the PFF grade of Kyle Duggar and go, ugh. You can look at Jasir Taylor and go, boy, he didn't even play very much for the Jets last year. I get that, but change of scenery sometimes is a good thing. And again, these guys aren't being brought in to be frontline starters. They're being brought in to bring competition and depth, and I think that's good.
Braylon Lux, he's somebody else that we should not forget, and somebody who impressed quite a bit. I think Charlie Clifford brought this up, and I think it was a terrific point, that he impressed on the practice squad last year, and sometimes a player like that who develops quietly under the radar can all of a sudden emerge and be a significant part of your defense in a role like this. One other point I want to bring up, Skinny, and get your opinion on this. Tyson Anderson now with the Denver Broncos. We really haven't talked about that. That, to me, to Darren Simmons, that's a pretty significant loss, and I think he's going to have to. Was a terrific personal protector and somebody that Darren Simmons back in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago said he trusted quite a bit.
Yeah, and listen, I think special teamers, I mean, I'm drawing a complete blank, the guy that was in New England forever, Matthew Slater, really was a special teams guy, pretty much nothing more than a special teams player, but a very valuable member. I do think those guys have a role on your team. In a perfect world, I wish they would have found a way to keep Tyson Anderson, but you just hope, to your point, somebody else is able to develop. And I think P.J. Jules can be an outstanding special teams player, in my opinion. I mean, he is just physical, fearless, all those things that you want, sometimes reckless, because we saw that some in training camp. I think he could develop into that kind of a guy. And the unfortunate part for Tyson Anderson, as I mentioned, they just didn't trust him as a positional backup. And,
I never quite got it, Skinny. I never understood.
I'm kind of with you.
When the team was essentially, for all intents and purposes, out of competition last year. Throw him in there to see what you have there.
I'm with you, Mike. I don't disagree, but I got to take the coach's word for this one, right? That if they didn't trust him, they didn't trust him. I mean, I don't get it either, but if they didn't trust him, they can't play him. I don't know why that was. Maybe they thought he was too frail, too thin, was not going to be able to take a pounding. I don't know. They didn't. I know you'll agree with me on that. They just didn't trust the guy. They didn't trust any of those backups to play, and so they really didn't play them, and hence we get to watch Geno Stone miss tackle after tackle after tackle.
So do you deduce that based on the free agent signings in the secondary and the defensive tackle and defensive end, that the Bengals are targeting a linebacker? Could that be part of their strategy or not?
No, because you're not going to be guaranteed that the linebacker that you're coveting, which is Sonny Styles, is going to be there at number 10. Right. I mean, he may be gone by then. So if you're targeting that, suddenly you got to flip. I don't. I think right now you can go in any direction you want to go. If Reuben Bain's your best player on the board and he's available, if Sonny Styles is your best player on the board and he's available, if Mansoor, Delane, or Jermod, McCoy, the cornerbacks, are the best on the board and they're available, if Caleb Downs is the best on your board, he's available. Again, that goes back to you don't have to force it. You can just go, this guy on our board, boom, we're going to take him.
I think that if the Bengals have a chance to get the most dynamic player, that's the player the player that
Correct.
can help them at the most positions and play the most positions. Go with that type of player. I don't know. I think one of those defensive specialists that they're looking for, an impact player, will be there at 10. There's no way they're trading up. Obviously, I mean,
it's not their style.
No, and the Bengals have too many positions to fill on defense still.
And I still think you're going to get an impactful. Yeah, you're going to get an impactful player that's going to fall to you. In fact, truth be told, you probably, if you went down a spot or two, that you're still going to get an impactful player that's going to help you. I wouldn't mind seeing that on draft night. So yeah, I just think there's so many directions that they can go now that again, I don't feel good about what they didn't do veteran-wise. That's probably coming at some point in the summertime, Mike. We're going to probably see a veteran linebacker come in that's tested the market, bounced around, just can't find the right price point. The Bengals are going to be the landing spot for that guy. So you will see a veteran body come in here, in my opinion. It may not be somebody that's got a lot of tread left on the tire, but I think it will be a veteran of some type. So you've done enough, I think, in my opinion, that, again, you go back to that number 10 pick, there is going to be an impact player on the board that they can take, and probably multiple. Like it'd be a good thing where if they have to go, well, we were like all three of these guys, but we like this guy better for this reason. Let's go there.
Give me why you like Reuben Bain at 10 and why you don't.
Why I do is what I saw just in the especially in the postseason, the playoffs. I mean, he just was dynamic. What you don't like are maybe some of the measurables, and I go wishy-washy on some of that stuff. I believe when I watch you play, I'm not a scout, I'm not a pro scout, I don't pretend to be, but when I just see guys making plays and impacting games, give me that guy. That's the guy that I want. So yeah, from what you just saw against high-level competition, this wasn't Miami beating up on the Citadel in Week 3 and Reuben Bain having 5 sacks. Yeah, it was high-level competition from going against guys that are going to play in this league too. So watching that, he just popped for me. And I don't think he's going to be there. I just think edge rushers are so coveted. Any pass rushers that both him and David Bailey from Texas Tech are probably both going to be gone at that point. But I do like him. Just watch him. Listen, we can look at all the freakish athleticism of a Shamar Stewart. Well, why didn't you finish? Boye Mafe the same way. Mike McDonald, the Seattle head coach, had really nice things to say about Boye Mafe, about his ability to disrupt passers, and I thought that was really good. He said, could he finish better? Sure. But he said his disruption was what really helped us. And so those usually don't show up. They may show up in quarterback pressures or win rates and some of those things. So that was good. But to me, I see Reuben Bain, he gets off and he finishes, and I like those guys.
Yeah, I do too. In his first year with the Bengals, what did you think of Shamar Stewart's ability to set the edge when he was on the field?
It wasn't the best. I mean, I'm going to chalk his season up to injuries. And it felt like once he got started, he took a step backwards. I don't use PFF grades as the be-all, end-all, but my eyeballs said he didn't play very well, and he was the worst ranked edge rusher in the NFL among qualifying edge rushers in their grades. That kind of backs it up a little bit, I would think. And so, yeah, I think honestly his first season was unfortunately he got off that good start in that Cleveland game. I thought he played pretty well before getting hurt, and then the injury just set him back, and he never was the same guy. But I also don't have much to fall back on, right? Like I can't go, man, he was so productive in college, and he just was beset. But no, he wasn't all that productive in college, and he wasn't all that productive here. I mean, remember our postseason talk with, maybe it was at the Combine. It might have been a postseason talk with Al Golden. But anyway, where he said, oh, thank goodness he got that sack in that last game. I mean, I think they felt like if he'd have had that 0 next to his name for sacks in 2025, that there'd have been a giant elephant on his back and their back too, to say, look, guy played 8 games, couldn't even get a single sack. Well, at least he got one. That's at least a starting point. So I just didn't think it was not a good rookie season. But We saw Miles Murphy take the year 3 as an edge rusher and get going. We've heard Lou Anarumo talk to us before about, Lou doesn't like to play rookies, right? And he talks about even edge rushers take some time. Corners take some time. And so I'm going to give him a pass. But, okay, let's get into year 2 and show us more. I don't need to see 15 sacks, but I need to see more.
What about the tight end position, Skinny? Do you think the Bengals are targeting that quietly, kind of under the radar? Or is that something where, maybe we get lucky with a 4th or 5th rounder? It's not a big priority at this point.
I don't see them addressing it at all. I saw a mock draft today that had them taking a guy in the 2nd round, and I thought, are you looking at the same team I'm looking at? I mean, they have Mike Gesicki. They have Tanner Hudson. They have Drew Sample. They're getting Eric All back. Even Cam Grandy at some points has had a role in a blocking role. I just think it's an already crowded tight end room, and it's not a position of need in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion. I mean, you've got guys with different skill sets. You got your 2 pass catchers. You've got kind of your all-around guy in Eric All, no pun intended. You've got your blocking specialist in Drew Sample. I don't think you would target that at all, unless, to your point, you're on day 3. They don't have a 5th round pick, so if they got 2 6s, 2 7s. You want to spend one of those on a tight end as a project, sure. You tried that with Tanner McLaughlin. That didn't work so well, but it's not supposed to. I mean, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, he was a 6th round pick too, for goodness sake. So, yeah, if you do that, that's fine. But I don't think you're going anywhere any higher than the end of day 3 if you're going at all.
Off-season workouts came out last Friday. Skinny, the NFL released programs for all 32 teams. You know what stuck out to me about the Bengals? And it really shouldn't surprise me. First of all, how late the workout date is, April 20th.
Yep.
They have only two OTAs, and they have the mandatory minicamp, and that's it. I don't know. I think they're allowed to work 50. Go ahead, Skinny.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be more of those days than that, Mike. There's going to be more than that. I think those were just the starting dates for the phases, to be honest with you. Phase 1 starts on April 20th. Phase 2 starts on May 11th. And then Phase 3 starts with that June period where you get the mandatory minicamp. So I think there's going to be far more than that.
Well, I mean, what was listed on the NFL site only had 6 days for OTAs and then had the 3 mandatory minicamp days. That would be 9 days.
Yeah, I think that's what they had last year, wasn't it?
Right, which is my point. I think you're allowed up to 15 of them, and the Bengals traditionally, Skinny, and this is my overarching point here, they don't push it to the limit in the off season, and I don't think they really ever have in terms of being rigorous with their off season training formally. Do you have any take on that?
I mean, the proof is in the pudding with how healthy the roster usually is, and I think that's his main goal, is to keep the roster as healthy as it can be and not push them when you don't need to push them, get a lot of the mind work in and the installation stuff in. I think I'm okay with it. I would like to see a little more physicality in training camp this year. I know there's some talk of doing a joint practice. I'd like to see that again because at least you get some level of tackling and physicality. I'd like to see more of that. Just because they just have been such a poor tackling team, and you can't improve it if you don't do it. And I get you don't want to hit your own, right? I mean, but you got to. It's part of the game. Guy gets hurt. You don't have to push it to a crazy degree. There's no more Oklahoma drills going on. There's no more, but could you have a live short yardage session, a live goal line session that's really physical and rigorous? I wouldn't mind seeing that.
So it's obviously important to point out there's no contact, there's no pads
in OTAs,
in OTAs and minicamp. There is none of that. So you couldn't work on that even if you wanted to.
No, right. That's right.
And my point though is more about the mental aspect of the game, because when people have asked, well, there's only so much you can do if there's no live tackling or there's significant limitations on physical contact. Even in training camp, even in the regular season, there's only so much you can do. My point would be to have the players on site more in structured programs to hammer down points that need to be hammered down, because still during the season, I see the Bengals make too many unforced errors. And we saw that defensively, obviously, last year throughout the season. There were too many. Let me go back here a second. Bad tackling, a lot of times, is not a physical problem. It's a mental and execution problem of allowing yourself too much space between yourself and the ball carrier.
Yeah, unless you're Geno Stone and you're afraid.
Yeah, there is that. But my point is, a lot of poor tackling comes down to technique, and you can work on technique without full contact in the offseason.
Well, I think they do. I honestly, I mean, we see those goofy tire drills they do where they tackle the tire. I think they do, but I just think it's like anything in life. Unless you're doing it live and real, you're just not. I don't think you can be good at it. I think some of the lack of tackling and the poor tackling too is you have guys in wrong spots because you're playing two rookie linebackers who made mistakes for a chunk of that. Now we've talked about this. They got better as the year went on. But listen, if they're not in the right place and suddenly it is incumbent upon a safety who doesn't want to tackle to come up and tackle, you're going to look like a disaster. And that's what it looked like for a chunk of last year.
What else are you working on, Skinny, on Local 12 and local12.com?
Well, it's mock draft time. I'm going to do one this week, and then I start my positional analysis starting next Monday, and I'll finish up with a mock draft the day before the real draft takes place. I mean, Mike, we are T-minus 2 weeks from this coming Thursday away from the draft. It feels like the offseason's gone like this. It always does, right?
It does, and there will be a lot to talk about previewing what the Bengals do at number 10, but not only number 10, they have 6 picks in total, so what are the Bengals going to do with the rest of the 5 picks? What direction do they take? Has the offseason in free agency been a clue of how they're going to address different positions on defense going forward? Skinny, it's always a pleasure, my man.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it as always.
All right, he is Richard Skinner, does a great job covering the Cincinnati Bengals for Local 12 and local12.com. My name is Mike Petralia, Trags. Follow my material at CLNS Cincy with a Y.com. And as always, on the X at Trags, TRAGS. For our terrific sponsor partner, that would be Prize Picks, and our great team at CLNS Media. Keep that jungle roaring.